you've seen a lot of different things when it comes to building a team. What are some of the common mistakes that you see pastors make when building a team?
So I was thinking about this idea, and I hesitate to use the word mistake, but let's just call it a mistake. Lessons learned, right? Some mistakes that perhaps I've made. I think one of the mistakes is, forcing a person, convincing a person to serve in a role when they're not ready, they're not gifted for that, and so they fail. And they disappoint the pastor. The biggest failure is they disappoint themselves. I think also, and I might be, pardon me, I might have a different opinion than some people, but I mentioned this early. We have 101, 201, 301. So we put people in places of leadership where they can serve that are behind the scenes. And I know at POA, Pentecostals of Alexandria, if you go to Because of the Times, you will have people serving everywhere. But these new people, and maybe they're not really faithful people, they're not serving in trusted leadership roles. You're involving them. So I kind of alluded to this earlier, but Proverbs 25:19, confidence in an unfaithful man in a time of trouble is like a broken tooth and a foot out of joint. So I think when pastors put people in a trusted position of leadership, like a department head, or put them on their platform, but they're really not, really faithful disciples. They haven't really, I don't want to say bought into, but become fully apostolic, but now they're in a trusted role. When you put confidence in them, but then they let you down, they're like a broken tooth, they're like a foot that's been sprained, and then something is lost there because you've trusted someone. So then a pastor can feel burned, disappointment, and I think the failure I see there is a pastor's withdrawal from trusting people because maybe they trusted someone who was not really trustworthy. And then sometimes we just let dysfunction go on forever, and it's very hard to fire a volunteer. And someone taught me when I was young that sometimes you have to care enough to confront someone that they're not doing a good job, they're in the wrong place, or perhaps they've disqualified themselves. So I see pastors that just let things continue in an unhealthy way, and they never really deal with them. Another thing is if you ask someone to do something, this is a mistake, you haven't trained them, you throw them out there to try to do a job that they haven't been trained to do, or you ask them to do a job, they don't have the resources, to be able to do that job. Or if they're on your staff, like a paid staff member, part-time or full-time, and they're starving to death, or you're making them work 70 hours a week and their marriage is failing, they don't have enough time for their family. Those are things that will undermine building a healthy team. And then just a couple more things, like morale is something, right, that's emotional, but it's accomplished. When the Queen of Sheba comes to see Solomon in all of his glory, one of the things that I would love to say is your people are happy. Your servants love doing what they do. And so, we try to honor our volunteers. We have an annual volunteer Sunday. Every 2 years, we have a big volunteer celebration where we thank people. On the alternating years, we have a leadership dinner where we thank our leaders. And we try to always take time to let people know that we value them and we appreciate what they're doing. And that's just one way of doing that. Another thing, this is kind of on the opposite side. If you expect something from someone, then you should inspect it to see if it's actually being done before it all implodes and falls apart.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's a mistake that you don't get feedback from the team by listening to people and finding out that things, they need resources, they need help, something is falling apart, and they were afraid to tell you.
Yeah. One other thing, common mistake that I see that I've struggled with in my own ministry, and I think if I know you correctly, this could be a temptation to struggle with yourself, because you can, if you're not guarded, you can have a perfectionistic mindset, right?
Right.
And have really high expectations of people. How can you how do you navigate the desire, the urge to micromanage someone? Because we all know that doesn't work in leadership, but how do you avoid that?
So again, you'd have to ask my people, but so you create a culture, but then that culture is somewhat self-perpetuating. I think there can be atrophy. But for example, if we have an event in our family life center, all the table legs go the same way. All the tables are set up the same direction. They're equal distant. Well, that's a 30-year-old paradigm, but our people, I'm in their head, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Years ago, we had a meeting with our music team and worship team, and I was, this is probably 26 years ago, and I was talking about getting it right and excellence. In my mind, I'm a perfectionist. I like to say a recovering perfectionist, but I'm not sure you could convince anybody I'm recovering, but probably harder on myself than other people. So I'm going on in this room, and a guy raised his hand. He's a very sharp, successful guy, and he said, "Brother Johns, what if we mess up?" And when I looked at him, I thought, this guy's really helping me right now. He's not asking him, for himself, but he sees that I'm probably bearing down on this a little too much. And
Yeah.
I said, well, if you mess up, you just fix it, And so we have this saying here, if you mess up and make it right. But so
That's
on
good.
the balance of, wanting a culture of excellence is not killing people, not beating them up when they mess up. And if they do, I'm not talking about doctrine or morals. You laugh about it, you go on, you fix it. Something happened recently, and, right after church, happening during church, and I won't go into the details of it, but I went to that person to try to take the pressure off of them because they knew they messed up. And I wanted them to know that failure was not fatal, wasn't final. I'm not mad at them. I'm not saying I've never been angry, but, and then, like, once you release people and then you've got to back away. So I don't micromanage the discipleship department, try to make sure it's going good, the youth department, the music production. If something goes wrong, we talk about it. But you've got, even a detail-minded person like myself, you've got to back out of those details and let those people run their departments. And I think if they were all in the room right now, that they would say, I do. Now, if something goes wrong, my nature is I start asking a lot of questions. Why did that happen? Let's go figure out, if that happened, what else might have happened? Or is there a flaw in the system? Is this a systematic or a systemic issue? Or was it a human failure that we all have in a blip on the screen? Do you differentiate that? I don't know if that answers your question, but there's a little experience anyway.